These are three things that when I learned about them and learned how to implement them properly, really elevated my training and then my results as a byproduct of that. So let me tell you what they are and how they can 10x your results in and out of the gym. And if you're new here, my name is Blair. I'm an online coach and I specialize in helping people build lean athletic bodies so they can do the stuff they want to do without second guessing themselves. So the three things we're going to talk about today is tempo, rep ranges, and bracing. And each one of them can add a whole new element to your training so that as a byproduct of that, your performance is going to get better and your physique is going to get better. So the first one we're going to look into is tempo, which essentially is a series of 4 numbers that is going to dictate how fast each rep should be. Each of the 4 numbers correlates to a different section of the lift. So if we look at that in more detail, the first number is going to be the eccentric portion of the lift, which generally is the lowering part of the lift. The second number in the sequence is going to be at the bottom of a lift. The third number in the sequence is going to be the concentric phase, so usually the power output phase when you're driving the weight up. And then the last number is going to be at the top of the lift. So for example, if we look at a tempo of 30x1, then the 3 is going to mean that we're lowering the load for 3 seconds. The 0 means we're not pausing at all at the bottom of the lift. We're just going to go straight back up into the concentric phase, which in this case is an X. Now that pretty much to me just means explode up. You're trying to move with purpose and get the concentric phase completed. And then the final number 1 means we're going to pause for 1 second at the top before going down into the next rep. Another example could be 2020, which essentially means that, again, the eccentric phase first is going to be lowered for 2 seconds. You're going to have no pauses at the bottom. And then the concentric phase this time is also controlled. So the weight going back upwards should also take you 2 seconds. And then the last number of the final 0, again, no pausing at the top. You're going straight into the next rep. Now, there's typically 2 families of lifts when it comes to tempo, because some lifts will start with the eccentric phase. If you're looking at something like a back squat or a bench press, when you've got that bar ready to go on your back, for example, the first part of the lift is you lowering down. But then you've got the other family of lifts, which is where actually the first part of the movement is the concentric phase. So things like, it could be a barbell overhead press, it could be a pull-up, it could be a lat pull down. So in that case, you're actually starting with the third number in the sequence. Now that can be a little bit confusing for some people, but just remember that whenever you see a tempo written out, prescribed in a program, the first number is always going to be the eccentric phase. So even if you are doing something like an overhead press, if the tempo is 2020, then you're going to press up for 2 seconds, no pause at the top, and you're going to control for 2 seconds back down, no pause at the bottom. So you're still following and reading the tempo in the same way, you're just starting in a different spot in the sequence. So the second thing we're going to look more into is rep ranges, and these are pretty much what they say on the tin. So we're aiming for a wider range of reps rather than one specific target. So for example, 8 to 10. And when we're looking at rep ranges, the goal is always to try and hit the top number of reps. And generally speaking, if you do hit the top number of reps, you have then earned the right to increase the weight that you're lifting. So on the next set, you would increase the weight to see if you can hit the top end range again. And ultimately, you're going to keep increasing the weight until you can't hit the top end range. When you get to that point where you actually cannot complete the top end number of reps, you stick with that certain weight until you can. And at that point, you would just increase it again. I really like using rep ranges myself because it allows me to progressively overload in terms of reps, not just in terms of weight. I almost sometimes like to think of it as I'm wringing out more progress from one weight before then moving up to the next one. And again, if your goals are to get bigger and or to get stronger, then rep ranges are a great thing to utilize. And you can use them in just about any movement in the gym. The third thing we're going to talk about is bracing. Now, essentially, this is just creating more pressure inside your trunk so that you're more solid and stable throughout the lift. Now, one of my favorite ways to explain this is actually to imagine you've got a can of Coke and you place it on the floor. If that can of Coke is still sealed, there's probably a decent chance you could actually stand on it and it's going to remain its integrity, right? It's going to remain in shape. But as soon as you open up that can and the pressure from inside has been released, if you go and try and stand on it now, it's probably just going to get completely crushed. So in that same respect, bracing allows us to remain tight, remain tensed throughout a lift, whereas if we aren't braced, we're more likely to fall apart a little bit. If you want to get a little bit more technical, then what we're doing is we're creating more intra-abdominal pressure, which then allows us to create more tension and hold strong position throughout of a big lift. Now, you don't necessarily need to be as braced and as tight as humanly possible for every single rep of every single lift you're doing in the gym, but when you're getting near your top end numbers in terms of strength, it is something you should be doing. And whilst we're speaking about bracing, it's probably worthwhile bringing up lifting belts. Now, lifting belts are a great tool, again, for that top end strength range because they allow you to brace even harder. It gives you something for your abs and your stomach to actually push against so you can create even more tension, letting you hold even stronger positions. But as a general rule, if you don't need to be using your belt and you're not working really near the top end of your strength, you probably shouldn't be using a belt for that lift because you're missing out on the potential gains of 1, learning how to brace properly yourself, and 2, just developing a stronger core in general. All right, so we've basically discussed 3 different tools you can implement into your training individually or all at once to help you get better results in the gym and therefore build a better, more robust physique. The first one we went over was tempo, which is essentially just looking at the speed that you should be doing each rep and how you can manipulate that to increase the time under tension and therefore increase the intensity of the set. The second thing we looked at was utilizing rep ranges so you can progressively overload, not just in weight, but also in terms of the number of reps that you're doing. And the last one we talked about was bracing so that you can hold stronger positions throughout of a lift and help you build a stronger core. So guys, if this video has helped you, do me a huge favor, give that thumbs up button a smash. Don't forget to subscribe and please share this video with someone else who might take some value from it.